How masculine men handle narcissistic women who don't respect, don't argue, do this. Did you know that research shows nearly 30% of men in long-term relationships have, at one point, encountered partners who exhibit deeply narcissistic traits? Traits that not only drain your emotional energy, but can leave you questioning your very worth. Have you ever wondered why some masculine men, despite being strong and self-assured, suddenly find themselves caught in a toxic web of manipulation and disrespect? What if I told you that the secret to breaking free from a narcissistic woman's control isn't found in arguing or fighting, but in a different, more powerful approach? Today, we're diving into the psychology behind how masculine men handle narcissistic women who refuse to respect them, and why the key is not to engage in endless arguments, but to do something entirely different, something that reclaims your power and forces them into submission. Before we get started, I invite you to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support is crucial in spreading awareness about the subtle yet destructive dynamics of narcissistic relationships and empowering more people to break free from toxic patterns. In the following discussion, we'll explore a range of psychological insights into why narcissistic women behave the way they do, especially when their sense of entitlement and need for control is challenged. We'll base our discussion entirely on how a psychologist approaches these issues, using research-backed evidence and clinical observations. If you've ever experienced the frustration of a narcissistic partner who constantly disrespects you, or if you're curious about the psychological strategies that truly work against manipulation, then you're in the right place. So, let's begin and discover the hidden tactics that truly dismantle narcissistic behavior, and learn what it is that masculine men can do to ensure that their strength is respected, and that the narcissistic woman is forced to confront her own limitations. Narcissistic behavior, as many of you know, is rooted in an overwhelming need for validation, control, and admiration. The narcissistic woman projects an image of confidence, charm, and attractiveness that initially draws you in, making you feel both desired and special. However, beneath that polished exterior lies a relentless desire to dominate the relationship, a need to have you constantly seeking her approval, always in a state of emotional vulnerability. Over time, this behavior becomes a cycle of idealization followed by devaluation. At first, you are showered with praise, lavish compliments, and gestures of affection that make you feel like the center of her world. But as the relationship progresses, that initial euphoria gives way to criticism, manipulation, and outright disrespect. The narcissistic woman, threatened by the very idea that you might reclaim your power, shifts into a mode of control where she diminishes your worth and makes you question your own value. For many masculine men who are raised to be independent, self-reliant, and assertive, this cycle can be particularly devastating. Society often praises the stoic, emotionally resilient man, but even the strongest among us can be worn down by constant psychological warfare. When a narcissistic woman refuses to respect your boundaries, dismisses your opinions, or openly belittles you, it's not just an attack on your pride. It's an assault on your identity as a man. And yet, the typical response is not to argue endlessly or to try to prove your worth through conflict, because that only feeds her need for control and validation. Instead, the most effective strategy, as many psychologists will attest, is to adopt a different approach, one that reclaims your power without descending into a battle of words. One of the most powerful techniques in this context is emotional detachment. Rather than engaging in heated arguments or trying to outwit her at every turn, masculine men who truly understand the dynamics of narcissistic abuse learn to withdraw emotionally. This is not about suppressing your feelings or becoming indifferent, but about consciously choosing not to feed the narcissist's need for reaction. When she provokes you, instead of reacting with anger or frustration, which only gives her the satisfaction of knowing she still controls your emotions, you maintain a calm, composed demeanor. This method, often endorsed by psychologists, is sometimes referred to as the grey rock method, though here it is adapted for those who wish to maintain their assertiveness without getting drawn into her manipulative games. By remaining unresponsive to her provocations, you signal that her words have no impact on you, effectively stripping her of the emotional supply she craves. Imagine a scenario where, instead of engaging in an argument when she insults you in public or tries to undermine your achievements, you simply smile, nod, and continue with your day. Over time, this consistent lack of reaction can cause her to feel powerless, as her attempts to control the narrative and manipulate your emotions fall flat. It's a subtle yet powerful shift in dynamics. Rather than allowing her to dominate every interaction, you take back the power by not giving her the reaction she so desperately seeks. This shift is not instantaneous. It takes time and practice. But it is one of the most effective ways to counteract the toxic behaviors that define narcissistic relationships. Another crucial tactic is the establishment and enforcement of firm boundaries. Narcissists are notorious for pushing limits, testing your resolve, and trying to break down your defenses. They may demand constant attention, try to monopolize your time, or insist that you adjust your schedule to suit their whims. When you set clear, non-negotiable boundaries and consistently enforce them, you create an environment where the narcissist's manipulative tactics are met with unwavering resistance. This not only protects your emotional well-being, but also sends a strong message: you are in control of your own life. As a psychologist would note, healthy boundaries are essential for any relationship, and they are especially critical when dealing with someone who thrives on exerting power over you. The more you stand by your principles and maintain your autonomy, the more you undermine her attempts to dominate your life. It is also vital to cultivate a strong sense of self-worth and confidence. Many masculine men are conditioned to believe that proving themselves through confrontation or dominance is the ultimate measure of their strength. However, in the context of a relationship with a narcissistic woman, traditional displays of masculinity can be weaponized against you. She may twist your assertiveness into arrogance, or use it as ammunition to make you appear unyielding or stubborn. Instead, real power lies in knowing your own value and refusing to let her undermine your self-esteem. This means investing in your personal growth, seeking out supportive relationships, and constantly reminding yourself that you are worthy of respect, regardless of her attempts to diminish you. Over time, as you build your self-confidence, you become less susceptible to her manipulative tactics, and her power over you begins to wane. The most critical moment, the turning point in reclaiming your power, comes when you fully understand that her harmful behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but a manifestation of her own deep-seated insecurities. When you grasp this truth, you can begin to detach emotionally from the toxicity and refuse to engage in her endless cycle of manipulation. This insight is not just empowering, it is transformative. It allows you to shift your focus from trying to change her behavior, which is ultimately futile, to changing how you respond to it. By doing so, you not only protect yourself, but also diminish her ability to extract emotional energy from you. In essence, you become the master of your own emotions, and in that moment, the narcissistic woman's power begins to crumble. Consider the case of a man who spent years in a relationship with a narcissistic woman. At first, her love bombing made him feel invincible, as if he were the only one who could truly see her brilliance. But as time went on, he found himself caught in a vicious cycle of idealization and devaluation. Every time he asserted his independence or expressed a desire to pursue his own interests, she would react with a carefully choreographed display of anger and remorse, only to repeat the cycle again. It wasn't until he began to practice emotional detachment, setting firm boundaries, and investing in his own self-worth that he noticed a significant change. The more he refused to play into her manipulative tactics, the less power she had over him. Over time, her once dominant presence began to fade, and he was finally able to reclaim his life. This story, based on clinical observations, is a powerful example of how real change occurs when you take back control over your emotions. Moreover, it is essential to recognize that the collapse of a narcissist is not achieved by direct confrontation or aggressive behavior. In fact, attempts to argue or fight back often result in further manipulation and escalation of conflict. Instead, the most effective strategy is subtle yet unwavering. Do not give her the satisfaction of a reaction. A psychologist would advise that your energy is far too valuable to be squandered on someone who thrives on provocation. The moment you decide to prioritize your own emotional well-being over her need for control, you set in motion a chain reaction that forces her to reconsider her tactics. This process may be slow and incremental, but with each instance of non-reactivity, you chip away at the foundation of her manipulative power. Another important element in this process is learning to recognize and understand her underlying motivations. Female narcissists often use the language of love, care, and intimacy as a facade to disguise their true intentions. They might say things like, "I need you to make me feel whole," or "Without you, I feel empty." These statements, when examined closely, reveal a desperate need for validation rather than a genuine desire for connection. They are not expressing vulnerability, they are laying a trap. By understanding that her expressions of need are, in fact, a tool for control, you can begin to dismantle the illusion of intimacy and focus on what truly matters: your own self-worth and independence. The next step in this journey is to develop a robust support system. Narcissists often isolate their partners from friends, family, and other sources of emotional support in order to maintain control. However, the more you surround yourself with people who value and respect you, the less room there is for her toxic influence. Engaging with a community of supportive individuals can provide you with the reinforcement you need to stay strong, even when her manipulative tactics seem overwhelming. This network not only validates your experiences, but also reminds you that you are not alone, that there are others who have successfully reclaimed their power after being entangled in narcissistic abuse. It is also critical to cultivate self-awareness through reflective practices such as journaling, mindfulness, or even therapy. These practices help you gain a deeper understanding of your own emotions and triggers, making it easier to remain detached when she tries to manipulate you. When you are fully aware of your own worth, every attempt she makes to diminish you falls flat. You begin to see that her need for control is a desperate cry for validation that has nothing to do with your value as a person. This inner clarity is what ultimately forces the narcissist into submission, because without the emotional reaction they depend on, their power is nothing more than an illusion. Now let's delve into a powerful insight that can serve as the key to breaking free from her toxic hold: the realization that her harmful behavior is a reflection of her own inner turmoil, not a measure of your worth. When you understand that her manipulative tactics stem from deep-seated insecurities and an insatiable need for validation, you begin to see through the veneer of charm and false affection. This knowledge is not just liberating, it is transformative. It empowers you to set firm boundaries, to refuse to engage in her endless cycle of idealization and devaluation, and ultimately, to reclaim your own life. Every moment of non-reaction, every instance where you choose to prioritize your well-being over her emotional demands, chips away at her control and forces her to confront the reality that she is losing you. And as her power over you diminishes, you find yourself moving closer to a state of true independence and self-respect. It is essential to recognize that the process of dismantling a narcissistic woman's control is gradual and requires patience, self-compassion, and a steadfast commitment to your own healing. The journey may be fraught with moments of doubt and lingering pain, but each step you take toward emotional detachment is a victory in itself. You begin to realize that her attempts to manipulate and control are not a reflection of your inadequacy, but rather a testament to her own inability to sustain genuine connections. With each passing day, as you invest more in your personal growth and establish boundaries that protect your emotional space, her influence over your life diminishes until it is nothing more than a distant, fading memory. In a world where toxic relationships can leave deep scars on our souls, the power to reclaim your life lies in understanding the psychological tactics of narcissistic abuse and choosing not to give in to them. When you learn to remain calm, to set unwavering boundaries, and to validate yourself independently, you effectively render her manipulative tactics powerless. The very strategies she employs to control you, her gaslighting, her love-bombing, her devaluation, lose their impact when you refuse to play along. You become immune to her emotional provocations, and in doing so, you transform the dynamic of the relationship entirely. Consider the case of a man who, after years of being manipulated by a narcissistic partner, finally reached the point where he refused to react to her constant provocations. Instead of engaging in heated arguments or apologizing for his own needs, he began to focus solely on his personal growth. He built a robust support network, engaged in therapy, and cultivated a deep sense of self-worth. Gradually, he noticed that his partner's manipulative tactics became less effective. She would resort to increasingly desperate measures, but her efforts to maintain control began to falter. Eventually, the narcissistic woman found that her influence over him had all but evaporated, and she was forced to confront the fact that she had lost her primary source of validation. This transformation was not achieved through confrontation or anger, but through the quiet, steadfast assertion of his own independence, a method that, as any psychologist will tell you, is far more effective than any battle of words. The key takeaway here is that true power in the face of narcissistic abuse comes from within. By focusing on your own emotional well-being and refusing to allow her toxic influence to dictate your reactions, you not only protect yourself, but also force her to face the reality of her own shortcomings. Her inability to change, her relentless pursuit of validation, and her desperate need for control are all rooted in deep-seated insecurities that cannot be sustained when you refuse to participate in her manipulative games. In this light, the 8-second moments of emotional detachment and the unwavering commitment to self-care become your greatest weapons in dismantling her control. It's important to remember that while the journey to reclaiming your power may be challenging, every step you take towards independence is a victory. You are not defined by her cruelty or her need to dominate. You are defined by your resilience, your strength, and your unwavering belief in your own worth. When you choose to focus on your own growth rather than on her manipulation, you send a clear message. You are no longer a pawn in her game. Instead, you are the master of your own destiny, and your self-worth is determined solely by you. This is the turning point where her influence begins to fade, and you emerge as the true victor in your own life. In summary, The reason why a narcissistic woman suddenly discards you, or why her harmful behavior becomes particularly pronounced as you assert your independence, is deeply rooted in her desperate need for validation, control, and admiration. Her tactics, whether it is love bombing followed by harsh devaluation or the constant manipulation of your emotions, are all designed to ensure that you remain dependent on her for your sense of self-worth. But the moment you begin to reclaim your emotional autonomy, to set firm boundaries, and to validate yourself independently, you chip away at the very foundation of her control. What you are left with is the undeniable truth that her power over you is nothing more than an illusion, a fragile facade built on a deep-seated insecurity that cannot withstand the light of your independence. If you found this video insightful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might be struggling with narcissistic abuse or toxic relationships. Your support is crucial. It helps us spread awareness about these destructive patterns and empowers more people to break free from the cycle of manipulation. I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might be the beacon of hope that someone else needs to hear. And if you're interested in learning more about how to set healthy boundaries, heal from emotional abuse, and reclaim your life from toxic influences, be sure to check out our next video on emotional recovery and self-empowerment. Stay strong, stay empowered, and remember, the power to reclaim your life is always within your reach. I'll see you in the next video.